You know, for poll cynics out there who say, well, former Texas Governor Rick Perry isn't really an influential force in this race just yet, if that is the case, then why did Hillary Clinton actually single him out with only two others in an ad attack? Take a look at this.
Governor Perry drastically cut funding for breast and cervical cancer screenings and then signed legislation that forced health centers across the state to close their doors in an attempt to wipe out access to safe and legal abortion altogether.
All right, with us now, the former Texas governor, 2016 presidential candidate, Rick Perry, here to respond. Governor, good to have you. I notice you are in there with, Scott Walker and Jeb Bush as candidates who've been very unfair and unfriendly to women via your opposition to Planned Parenthood. I wanted to give you the chance to respond to that. What did you think?
Well, we've expanded the health care for women in the state of Texas through multiple ways, one of which is we passed the most sweeping tort reform in the nation in 2003 that exploded access to health care. If you were a pregnant female along the Rio Grande, you had to leave your county to get that prenatal care. No longer is that the case. We did stop funding for Planned Parenthood, and actually, after seeing those videos, I think people, whether they're pro-choice or not, should be offended greatly to what they're seeing out of those videos. As a matter of fact, I call for the non-profit status of Planned Parenthood to be pulled.
You know, Governor, a lot of people have taken this, so that is on the other side, the Democrats and liberals, that Republicans' opposition to Planned Parenthood is tantamount to a war on women, the same attack line they use when going after Mitt Romney. How would you respond to that?
Well, it's just not true. I mean, it's how they try to deflect off of. These videos are not defensible. When you look and see what Planned Parenthood has been up to for all these many years, it's one of the reasons that we pulled the funding of Planned Parenthood in the state of Texas. We realized what was going on some years ago. We are for expanding health care for women. And as I said, we did that in the state of Texas. It can happen in those states, but it's not the federal government's responsibility to be funding that type of activity at all.
Would you take this so far as Donald Trump had said he thinks this is worth shutting down the government with this Planned Parenthood vote? In other words, the vote that came up short yesterday in the Senate, he'd push it to a make-or-break situation and even risk shutting the government down. I think he was saying this on It's radio show. What do you make of that?
Well, I think this is what's wrong with Washington, D.C., that they can't find a way to work together. This idea that you got to shut government down is really outside the realm of what people outside of Washington believe. We didn't shut government down in the state of Texas. We worked together to find solutions, and I think that's what they need to do in Washington, D.C.
But are there such things, I think what is intimating at, and some of your competitors were hinting at, Governor, is that there are some issues, moral or otherwise, that get to the point where if the other side refuses to see what's at stake, it is worth putting the running of government itself at stake. In other words, it is worth shutting down to bring these points up. You say what?
I think this is the same kind of false narrative that you had in the Iranian negotiation. It's either sign this negotiation or we go to war. There are a lot more ways to get things done than standing up and taking a stand and say we're going to shut government down. Find the way to make government work. I think that's what Americans are looking for, whether it's dealing with the defunding of Planned Parenthood or whether it's the funding of our military.
Are you surprised, Governor, and we don't know how these polls will turn out and who will be at which debate on Thursday. It probably, in the scheme of things, doesn't mean anything. But I am surprised, even at this stage, as a lot of your competitors are, that Donald Trump is still rising in the polls and his negatives are going down. Why do you think that is?
Well, I know one thing, that in 2007, Mayor Giuliani, who was a celebrity in his own right at that particular point in time, was at the top of the polls, as was Fred Thompson, another celebrity candidate. So I don't know whether that has anything to do with it or not, but I wouldn't be surprised. We'll see in the long run. This is a long, long campaign. We're going to have to stand up, talk about the things we care about, put our names and our good judgment on the line relative to our philosophy. So are you for single-payer health care? Are you for the states deciding these issues? Are you for the people deciding these issues? Those are questions that are all going to get asked in debate settings, and there's not going to be any dodging them.
You know, So, Governor, again, I don't know which debate you'll be in or how it will all sort out, but I almost think not to be in the primetime debate might actually be a favor for those in the earlier debate in that they don't have to compete or risk getting the oxygen sucked out of the room with a Donald Trump. I don't mean to disparage Mr. Trump, nor do I mean to disparage you or your counterparts, but that it might be a better venue to be in the early debate because more of a chance to focus on those issues. What do you say?
Regardless of where we are on the debate, whether it's the 5 o'clock or the 9 o'clock debate, it's going to be with some very substantial people, and I look forward to laying out and letting people, remind people that I was the governor of the 12th largest economy in the world for 14 years. I've worn the uniform of this country. The veterans out there respect me for that, and the people who understand that we need a commander-in-chief who not only respects them highly, but also understands what they go through. And having been the commander-in-chief for the Texas National Guard and the multiple deployments that we've had, and my economic record, put it up against anybody on the stage.
You know, Governor, are you surprised that no one doubts how tough you are? You put those 3,000 troops on the border to deal with the porous border, but you were asked yesterday, and I didn't quite understand your answer about what you would do for the illegals who are here right now. Would you ship them back? Would you grant them amnesty? What would you do for the millions who are already here?
Well, again, there are a lot of really smart people that I'll be working with to address that issue, but that's not what Americans care about right now. They want to see this border secure. They've heard this deflective conversation for 30 years about how do you deal with the people that are here. Ronald Reagan signed a piece of legislation that gave over 4 million of them amnesty. But the border was not secure.
No, I understand.
When Americans
you want to tighten the border.
That this border is going to be secure.
I understand
then
that.
They'll have this conversation with the American people.
But a lot of people are going to know that there are 10, 20 million illegals who are here, and that they've obviously gotten through, slipped through the cracks. Some for a generation, generations. Is a President Perry going to do anything about shipping them back, deporting them, some of them, all of them? What?
President Perry will lay out at the appropriate time how he would deal with this, but not until we get the border secured, Neil. That's what people care about, and that's what we're going to be focused on, and we know how to do it. You put the personnel on the border. You have the strategic fencing in place. You put those aviation assets from Tijuana to El Paso to Brownsville, flying them 24/7, looking down, making that analysis, and then sending quick response teams. At that particular point in time, the border will be secure, and we can have the conversation about how to deal with the people that are here.
With all due respect, Governor, what you just told me isn't a lot different than what Hillary Clinton said on Keystone. I'll get back to you if I become president. What you told me there is, I'll deal with this if I become president.
There's only one person on that stage that knows how to secure that border, and it's me.
Okay.
Because I've done it.
All right. Governor, thank you very much. One way or the other, we look forward to Thursday. Always a pleasure having you. Rick Perry.
Yes, sir.
The governor of the fine state of Texas.